speaker is Mr. Pranay Vasani. Uh, Mr. Pranay Vasani, he is a director client solution at Whiz.ai, and his company is having branches in India, USA, and the UK. Pranay has completed PGDBM in Finance, and he has completed the management studies, and he is a Bachelor of Engineering in Computer from Father Francisco Rodriguez College of Engineering. He has a very vast working experience as business analytics. He is a senior consultant and works in industries such as Vistar Technologies, Trello, and ThoughtWorks. Mr. Pranay has completed various certifications on the topic data science with affairs, exploratory data science, and getting and cleaning the data. There is a quote: to give real service, you must add something which cannot be bought or measured with money, and that is sincerity and the integrity. Now, this quote is well suited to Mr. Pranay. Now, I would like to mention, I'm very happy to mention that Mr. Pranay, who was 24th in the merit list in entire Maharashtra board for secondary school examination. And from thereof, he continued to excel in his life. Now, I invite such a multi-talented personality, Mr. Pranay Vasani, here with us. Thank you, Mr. Pranay.
Sir, you are not audible, sir. Please unmute your audio.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, great. Sorry about that. So yeah, thanks, Mr. Sandeep, for your kind introduction. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank the entire institute, principal sir, vice principal madam, to give me this opportunity to present my talk. And I would also like to thank Sandeep from Graminer, who presented earlier this morning. Essentially, he kind of gave me the encouragement and a push to participate in this event and present my thoughts on natural language processing. So thanks, Sandeep. Yep. Cool. Can we begin?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. So I'll share my screen. Let me know once you share my screen. See my screen?
Yes, sir. It is visible.
Okay, great. So I put the presentation in slideshow mode, and good morning, everyone, and especially to the young and energetic students. It's really interesting and exciting to talk to you and share my thoughts on natural language processing, which is one of the upcoming fields in the area of artificial intelligence, which I would say is going to change things very drastically in near future. And as we go along the presentation, you will also understand and it's relate to like how this technology has already kind of conquered our day-to-day life as well. So I have a good amount of real life examples to share with you, and which you will be able to relate to pretty easily. So let's begin. The agenda for the talk is it's kind of an introductory session to NLP. So we'll start with what is the natural language processing all about, why does it matter in the first place, and I'm a firm believer of the fact that to understand anything, it's better that you start top down. So you start understanding the applications of certain technology, how it is used in real life or business scenario, and then start getting into the details of the underlying technologies or algorithms that kind of drive those technologies. That's the right way to approach, because some of the things can get really intimidating if you start from ground up or bottom up. So it's always better, like what are you trying to solve. If you start from there and then get into the details, that kind of helps, get a firm grip of the subject that you want to, start or get deep into. Okay. So we'll spend like good amount of time understanding the real world applications of NLP. Then I'll briefly talk about the typical NLP pipeline. What all things go behind the scenes for a typical NLP application, and then we'll end the session with what are the challenges that this particular field is currently facing. Okay, so that's pretty much the outline of the talk that we have for today. So let's start with what is NLP. So NLP is kind of a subset or a specialized branch of artificial intelligence, which kind of cuts across the field of machine learning on one hand and the computational linguistic on the other hand. And the whole idea of NLP is basically to understand uh, what is being spoken by human or what is being written by human, and then trying to make sense out of it, and then fulfilling various use cases or applitions that one can think of. Okay, so that's what essentially NLP is all about. Moving on, why does NLP matter? So ever since the language was invented, language has become the primary interface for human, right, to express themselves. Now, whether it's reading, writing, or speaking, we simply cannot live without it, without these actions. So if you like go back in the morning and then start thinking about what all things you have done when it comes to language, you will understand that a lot of speakers have given their talks, so they are speaking in language. All of us who are the attendees, we are trying to understand and interpret what has been spoken about by that speaker. Some of you might be taking notes in your respective languages, whether it's English, Marathi, Hindi, whatever it is, to make sense out of it, what has been spoken. So we are kind of using language every second, I would say, to express ourselves, and that's the reason NLP matters. uh, and this is about personal life. When it comes to the business life, even the businesses are built around text. So let's say if you talk about sales, sales, people are going to customers, they are explaining about their products. Again, this is happening through natural language. When it comes to call center, people call up call center, they talk about their complaints, their service requests, again in natural language, whatever be the language be, right? English, Hindi, Marathi, or whatever it is. People write reviews about their favorite products, the movies that they have watched, or the series that they have watched on various websites. Again, that is through language. uh, in the company also, the internal communication that happens between or among the team members through collaboration tools like Skype, Slack, or Teams is again through language. So that is a written form of the language, right? And let's say what we are doing right now is also through language. So we are essentially surrounded by the language. We cannot do anything without language. So imagine that you are just watching my video, but it's kind of muted, so you wouldn't be able to make sense out of it, right? So that's the power of language that we are talking about, and that's the reason NLP does matter. And nowadays, that's the reason people are focusing on how the technology can you know make sense of the language, and then on top of that, what all use cases or applications can be built, which will be good for the entire humankind. Okay, now let's spend a couple of minutes to understand what has made NLP to progress so fast. So I would say the majority of the breakthrough have come in for the field of NLP in last 3 to 4 years, essentially because of three things that you can see on the slides right now. First is, of course, we all are aware that a lot of computation power is now available in the hands of business as well as an individual. So let's say if I want to get a good hardware, I can pay to these cloud providers such as AWS, Google, or Microsofts of the world, and can get a lot of compute power behind my back to run like various applications or do any kind of research that is kind of computation intensive. So commoditization of hardware is the number one factor. Now, since NLP is revolving around text, and since it kind of sits at the intersection of machine learning, and as we all know, machine learning basically is kind of driven by lots and lots of data. So again, to make sense out of the text which is there out in the world, we need the data, right? Annotated data, which can be processed by these various machine learning and deep learning algorithms, uh, which kind of helps computer uh, understand the syntax and the semantics of the language. Okay, which we'll briefly touch upon once we get into the section of the typical pipeline of the NLP. But yeah, essentially without data, nothing is possible. So we need large and open text data sets, and thanks to some of the organizations like Wikipedia, Reddit of the worlds, who have generously kind of accumulated and donated very large textual data sets, so that which can be used by, let's say, the researchers and the companies alike to train their models, machine learning and deep learning models, on those pieces of text, which kind of help them further develop applications which are of their interest. So availability of the data is again a good factor which has kind of helped NLP progress fast. And the third concept, which is a transfer learning. So I will give a very naive example here without getting into the complexity and the technicalities of the stuff. Basically, transfer learning talks about how the learning which has been obtained from one domain can be utilized to drive the application or use cases in another domain. So for example, let's say if I have to take an example of a child, let's say if you tell them that, hey, uh, this is kind of an image of an elephant, right? And this is an image of let's say another animal, tiger. So basically they are able to understand that, hey, when you show them enough examples of images of elephants at various positions, or in the different contrast of the light, they are able to like understand that, hey, this is elephant. And then they can also like relate what they have learned during that process to determine that when you show them the pictures of, let's say, tiger, that they will immediately understand that, hey, this is not an elephant, but this might be another animal. And now if you try to teach them that, hey, this is tiger, then they can easily relate that, hey, this is tiger. So these things, they happen, I mean, as part of our muscle memory behind the scenes. We don't have to consciously understand when we move from one thing to another, but for computer it is very hard. So whatever technology that we are kind of building, that kind of gets the inspiration from like how we as a human learn about the environment and the surroundings that we live in. So those same concepts are applied to the various fields within AI as well. And artificial intelligence at the end is all about like mimicking the behavior and the knowledge level of humans. So that's all it is too. And then when you combine all these three, basically you can do a lot of significant things now in the field of NLP as compared to what you could do 3 to 4 years ago. Yep. So let's spend more time into like what all applications of NLPs are. And by no means like these applications are like they could be standalone applications, or any of the use cases that you see can be combined in whatsoever format to create another application out of it. So let me start and explain like how this has been structured. So for example, see, every system would have three essential blocks, right? Input, the processing block, and the output. Now, some of the applications that we'll go through, they will fall into that, buckets. So let's say for if I have to develop any NLP application, let's start with an example of let's say digital assistants like Google or Siris or Alexas of the world, right? Now, if you want to interact with these digital assistants or devices, there has to be some input given to them, right? Which we are going to be like, either we are going to talk it out or speak it out, or maybe we can type it out. So that becomes the input for the consuming application. So that is where automatic speech recognition comes into the picture. Now, what this does is basically, I mean, as you all might be aware, it understands the spoken language or words from a human, and then it converts into the text which can be consumed by computer. Okay, so that kind of essentially starts the entire process. Okay, and now we have kind of achieved a good amount of accuracy when it comes to recognizing the speech. Okay, compared to like a few years ago. So this is kind of a majorly a solved problem now. Now let's move on to the other application, which could be a language detection. So now let's say if you are presented with a lot of documents written in different languages, so there could be a need for any business or application to just figure out like what language this document is written in, right? So for example, again, there could be a case of computer vision helping us out in this case, where we have taught computer that, hey, these symbols represent, let's say, English language, these characters represent Hindi language, these characters represent Marathi language. So if you continuously teach computers by having them scan these different documents written in different languages, then it ultimately they would be able to understand that, hey, whatever language which is depicted in this document might belong to certain language category. Okay, so that's another application of language detection of NLP. Machine translation. So we all are aware of the fact that since like there are hundreds or thousands of language spoken and written all around the world, we need ability for machine to be successfully translate from one language to another. So yeah, we'll talk about that as well in the upcoming slides. Sentiment analysis, basically this is all about whatever is being written, classifying that into kind of an emotional tilt of a text, whether what has been written is positive, negative, or neutral kind of a written words or a sentence, which can be used for like various applications in the business. So for example, let's say I as a user am writing like a lot of reviews for certain products, and the marketing team or the public relations team of that company who is manufacturing that product is kind of seeing the tweets or the reviews that I have written. They would be interested in knowing what is the voice of the customer. Are they talking good about our product? Are they talking bad about the product? Are they neutral? Which will further give them the feedback in terms of if there are any improvements that they can make in their product or services. So that's the application of sentiment analysis. Entity extraction. So this particular use case talks about, see, let's say, I mean, if I say any sentence, for example, Shaniwar Wada is in Pune, right? Now the moment I talk about this sentence, I know that I'm talking about Shaniwar Wada, which is a place, and Pune, which is again a place, but it's an instance of a city. But for computer to understand what has been spoken about and what all words mean in the sentence, and how to classify them in various categories such as place, product, people, that's a very hard problem. Okay, so this is one of the very fundamental block of any NLP application in terms of detecting what's spoken or written in a natural language sentence or para or words, and then kind of classifying them and extracting out the necessary entities which might be of interest for that particular application. So this is one of the again a good use case and application of NLP. Information extraction. So now again, we as a human, we are like very much so tuned, and we are able to understand things without somebody teaching us how to like relate what is being mentioned in the sentence. So for example, let's say, we I say that doctor, treats patients. So this relationship is known to us, right? And based on the relationship of this particular subject, object, and verb, if the same relation gets, interpreted by or get used in another sentences. So let's say, yeah, I was sick and I kind of got treated. Now, if I say this, then there is no reason for me to mention that I was treated by doctor, because we know that behind the scenes in our mind that, hey, doctor treat patients. So I don't have to explicitly tell some of the things which are very obvious. But for a computer or a machine to understand that relationship is very critical. So that is what information extraction is all about. Okay, moving on. There are again like a lot of use cases, but these are some of the like representative use cases which we should be aware when we talk about natural language processing. So document analysis. So let's say you happen to work for a law company, which kind of receives thousands of documents, in a day. Now you want to classify them into certain categories based off, which are of your interest. Then machine can do a fair amount of good job in scanning through these documents and categorize into various categories that might be of interest to you. Summarization again is a good use case in real world, which is getting a lot of attention nowadays. So for example, let's say we get a newspaper, right? Now who has time to like read through like 15 or 20 pages of news every day, right? How about if somebody can summarize, let's say, topic of our interest in less than 100 words or so. That is where the summarization use case comes into the picture, right? Where what happens is basically the entire document would be scanned and the related summary or the key points would be extracted out and then presented back to the user. Okay. Question answering. Again, we as a human are very curious in nature. We always like want to ask questions. And let's say you are given again a long list of documents, and then somehow you have this question that, hey, without having to scan, how can I get the questions which I have about a particular topic? So then here is where the question answering application comes into the picture. Again, I have like a couple of very interesting use cases about it, real world examples. We'll go through that. Natural language generation, again, this is one of the subset of the entire NLP application, which is gaining like a good amount of traction nowadays. So the whole idea here is about how do we like convert the structured data into text. So for example, again, one of the example that you might be aware of would be, let's say you talk to Alexa or Google Assistant, right? Now behind the scenes, whatever information that you get. So for example, let's say if you ask Alexa the question that, hey, how it is outside today in Pune. Now you always hear a voice as an output, right? And if you would have noticed, it's always kind of different. The way you get the response, it's kind of different, so as to sound like more of a human in nature. But once the information has been extracted by computer to present it back to the user, and on top of that to sound it more like a human, that's where the natural language generation capabilities come into picture. Okay. Text to speech again is kind of in the same category. Let's say if computer wants to speak out rather than showing it as a text, then this capability comes in handy. So I hope this is kind of making sense when it comes to like the business use cases or the applications of NLP. Now let's deep dive into some of the live examples that I have kind of captured from our day-to-day life interaction with the machines. Okay, so let me begin with the first thing. So uh, the first thing is, as you can see on my screen, this is the email that I received from the college, Parvati ma'am, giving me the invite for this particular event. Now, I'm pretty sure everyone who is using Google for their, let's say, personal or professional life, they would have seen, these three responses, which come at the bottom of every email, right? I don't know. I mean, this is like a very cool feature, I would say, which Google has created. It's called a smart reply. And the way it works is basically first, it kind of detects which language the mail has been written in, and as of now it supports only English. If you go through the link which I have mentioned on this slide, you'll get the understanding of what this model is all about and how does it run. But first it detects like what is the language of the email. Second, it also kind of understands the topics which are being talked about or referred to in the email. If there are any sensitive topics, then these suggestions that you see at the bottom, which is called a smart reply, they won't show up. Okay, so Google purposely avoids giving suggestions for topics which are sensitive in nature. Now, after these two criteria have cleared, then what happens is Google then try to understand what has been written in the email body, and then based on that, it kind of tries to generate the replies that are like suitable for this particular mail body. Okay, now so in to put things in the perspective for this example, since I was invited to speak in this webinar, Google understood that hey, there is some sort of invitation thing has been talked about in this particular mail body, and that's the reason it gave a suggestion as hey, I accept the invitation, or thanks, I will be there. If it happens to be like a physical event that would be happening in your college, then this kind of a reply makes sense that hey, I will be physically there. I accept the invitation. That's again an appropriate response. Or let's say it kind of also is smartly generating a third response saying that I won't be able to attend. Now I don't know whether it kind of looked at my calendar behind the scenes, and if it would have seen some sort of a conflict at the same time, and then it would have thought that maybe I may not comply to this request. So then it kind of gave me I won't be able to attend kind of a smart reply. But nonetheless, this is a good example of natural language processing, which you will see yourself encountering if you happen to use Google. So I will give it a try next time when you go through your Gmail when you are about to reply to somebody. Pay attention to these three replies that come up. Okay. Another feature which is like smart compose. I'm pretty sure again most of you would have used this feature. So no matter whether you are typing out for the very first time, that means you are initiating a conversation, or maybe you are replying to a particular email. What Google has now progressed from earlier, like if you see, it used to give like a suggestion for the next word or maybe a next character, depending on like the how you go about typing. But now they have gone like one step ahead, and again these technologies are not new. They have been put into practice since I would say 2018. But this is like these are the real life examples which I wanted to talk about. So what it does behind the scene is it kind of understands the conversation's history for this particular context of the mail. It understands what has been talked about in the subject line, what has been already written in the email itself, and then it tries to give the prediction for the next sentence. So, for example, here somebody is talking about dinner next week. So, haven't seen you in a while, want to grab dinner next week at my place. Now, the reason why you have mentioned my place, it kind of gives the suggestion as my address, because you are referring to my place. It is most likely that you are going to give them the details of your address as well, and that's the reason my address is something comes up as a autofill or autocomplete kind of a feature. Okay, so go ahead and read about this paper which I mentioned in the slides. Again, it will be very interesting for you to understand how things work behind the scenes. Okay. Next is text summarization. So couple of examples. Maybe I'm not sure how much time do I have, but
Hello, sir.
yes.
So you have 5 minutes.
Okay. Oh, is it okay? Then maybe I'll just quickly skim through the slides. But go ahead
Yes.
and play around with these slides which I've mentioned, and maybe I can share the slides with the coordinator, and then they can circulate it to the rest of you. But in
Yes.
short, I'm pretty sure you would have used as an application which kind of summarizes all the news articles in less than 60 words. Okay, so that's again one of the application. Machine reading comprehension. Again, I wanted to actually go through the live demo how this demo is particularly from Microsoft, where they have put in a sample document, and then you can try out on your own a different questions pertaining to that document, and you can actually see how this particular tool gives you the results of the questions that you are asked based on the question. Okay. Q&A, again, this is something that I was trying. So let's say if you ask Google the question that, hey, what is the color of Aishwarya Rai's eyes, then it will kind of give you a long answer and a short answer. It will say that, hey, it's green, based on some of the documents that it would have scanned and understood. Okay, so you can again play around yourself with these kind of use cases. Again, Google has one more demo which you can try it out on your own. NLG, if you talk about, I'm pretty sure you would have Excel or Google Sheet at your disposal. So just go about opening an Excel, put some sample data in the columns, and click on ideas. Okay. uh, on the right hand side pane, it will kind of generate a lot of automatic insights, and for every insight it will also have kind of a textual commentary, which is what is called as natural language generation. So what it does is basically, rather than interpreting the chart myself, it is kind of giving you the more of a commentary or verbiage, so that I can make more sense out of the chart. I may not be a good reader of the chart, but now the computers are helping me understand the various analytics in the charts. Okay, so that's the application of energy. I'll skip through this slide. Machine translation, everyone is aware. Google kind of allows you to translate from one language to another language. Named entity detection, again, I had a lot of demos planned, but you can explore on your own through these various websites which are available, and you will understand that what it kind of does. So for example, here in this case, I've just written a few words about Sachin Tendulkar, and how it is associated with BCCI, and how many runs he has scored, and then it can kind of detect that Sachin Tendulkar is a person, India is a country, more than 30 years refers to a time frame, so on and so forth. Okay. Chatbots, I don't have to explain anyone, but let's say if you are a customer of HDFC or another bank, most of the banks nowadays they have their chatbots to which you can directly interact, so that you don't have to go through their customer support. These are kind of self-serve applications which are available in real world, right? Google Duplex, again, I don't have to talk about, everyone would have seen back in May 2018 what this brilliant piece is all about. So yeah, let's skip through that. NLP, NLU, and NLG, I think we have spoken about it. Essentially, NLP is about reading the language. NLU is about understanding the language, and NLG is about writing the language. Okay. These are some of the core technologies that gets used. Maybe I'll again skim through in the in respect of time, but let me spend like a couple of minutes here because this is very essential. So these are the typical steps that happen behind the scenes in any typical NLP application. So there are two things at a very high level. There is a syntactical aspects of the language, and there is semantical aspects of the language. When it comes to syntactical aspects, it's mainly about what is the structure of the sentence and the grammar of the sentence. What is the word, every word which is part of the sentence, whether it's a noun, it's a verb, it's a adverb, everything. And then when it comes to semantic, it is mainly about what does the every word or the what is the relationship between the words that are part of the language or the sentence that you're trying to analyze. So that is more of a semantic in nature. So these two things, when you kind of combine together, it will most likely be able to understand what has been spoken about or talked about or written about, and then you can utilize the various information that come out of these typical steps to further kind of build an application or a use case around. Okay. So yeah, feel free to go through these slides in offline manner. But yeah, these are like very important things in NLP. Let's spend like one more minute to talk about why NLP is hard. Now, see, we as a human understand language very easily, but language in itself is like very ambiguous in nature. Even for some of the examples that I have, even you will be confused, like what does this particular thing mean. So for example, lexical ambiguity. What is a lexical ambiguity? It's a ambiguity related to a word. So a word can be either a noun or a verb. So for example, if I have this example of we saw her duck. Now, this statement is ambiguous. Okay, there are two meanings of duck. Duck could be a verb or duck could be a noun. So the first interpretation is we saw her lower her head. So duck is basically lowering your head, or the duck, when used as a noun, could be something or the animal which kind of belongs to her. So this is the true interpretation of the same sentence. When it comes to syntax level ambiguity, again I have one example. So let's say if somebody says that, hey, Mumbai police kills man with knife. Now the way you interpret has again different meanings here. So what does it mean? Mumbai police killed a man with a knife, or Mumbai police killed a man who was holding knife in his hand. So these are the two possible meanings, okay, of the same sentence. So we as a human, if we are there on the scene, we can easily make out, but for computer it is very difficult to understand in what context it was spoken, right? So again, these are the challenges that NLP right now faces. Again, the third example is kind of referential ambiguity. So let's say if somebody says that Rima went to Gauri and she said, I am tired. Now, what does she indicate here? Is she referring to Rima or is she indicating to Gauri? So basically, who is tired? We don't know. Unless and until you have more context, you won't be able to answer the question, right? So these are some of the challenges that this field is facing right now, because language by itself is very hard and ambiguous in nature. Okay, and yeah, let's maybe probably we can skip this because this will require like further talking. But yeah, NLP in general, it's a hard problem to solve, and depending on like what are you trying to solve as part of your business use case or application, it can further get complicated. Okay, so thanks, and maybe if we can take up any questions if there are. I'll stop sharing.
Any questions from audience? Uh,
Hello,
okay,
sir.
any questions?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Hello,
please,
sir. In regard of
please go
NLP
ahead.
privacy, hello, sir. Am I audible?
Yes.
Sir, in regard of NLP, privacy is under surveillance, which is not good. So, how do we need to convince about the scenario?
Can you kind of repeat your question with a concrete example? What exactly you want to
Sir,
understand in the
sir,
case of
just
privacy?
ju- just like a smart typing in the Gmail,
Right.
the bot automatically respond to the smart replies. So that's by doing that, the privacy is under surveillance. Means
Right.
our own data is under surveillance. So how can we trust that
So
technology?
basically, every company that they try to follow the guidelines which are, set up by, the governing bodies. And then most likely, as a user also, you also kind of, opt into the Google's, terms and services when you decide to, use Google. So behind the scene, I'm assuming that they are fair, and they also talk about the fairness policy on their website under the, smart reply and smart compose papers that they have written. So I'm assuming that although they might be accessing your emails, but they might be just using it for training of the model purposes, without actually trying to spy you. So I mean, that's what we can hope for, but otherwise, I mean, uh, the how the world works right now, I would say, I mean, everything is visible to everyone, right? We are no longer like safe in that perspective when it comes to privacy. So yeah, that's the short answer that I have.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for giving deep insights about NLP and its application. Over to you, Shekhar, sir.
Yes, Mr. Pranay, very beautiful presentation on the natural language processing. Initially, you beautifully explained the how and why it is progressing very fastly because of the better computation that can handle large text database and transfer learning. So, because of this, this is the efficient progress of the NLP. And most beautiful thing is that you have explained very nicely all the examples of the speech recognition, language detection, machine translation, sentiment analysis. Particularly, you have given the example of the Shanwar Pune and entity extraction, information extraction, document analysis, summarization, question answer, text to speech. So, very variety of applications are there for the natural language processing. And also, you nicely explain about the example, real life examples of Gmail, how it is smartly reply the emails, how it is smartly it can be composed. Also given the examples of the Excel, and also you classified the NLP, NLU, and NLG, and how it is hard. Now you also explained very nicely to all the students. So we are really grateful to you for your nice and beautiful presentation on this NLP. Thank you, Mr. Pranay Vasani. Thank you for being with us. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Now, now may I call